So this is a video responding to Nefren Kayan. Great question, by the way. Thank you for the question. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. The question is about the Spaniards who brought Maurian type people to Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico just being part of the Caribbean island chain means that there were a lot of Maurian type people already in those islands. The reason that the Maurian presence in the Caribbean is so rich is not because they were brought here by Europeans, but because the very large trade routes that had been established 1500 BC by Maurian people in what is now West Africa. Now, you can look this up. You'll find it. A lot of the confirmations for this you can look up in mainstream stuff like Encyclopedia Britannica, the writings of Ivan van Sertima. All these things are available and you can find them. So first and foremost, we have to start with Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was completely oblivious to the lands to the west when he was a merchant. But then he went to Ghana from 1482 to 1485. And during that time, he was exposed to the maps and the lore of the people of the Malian Empire. Now, what you understand about the West African part of the world is that there were three major empires that were engaging with the Atlantic Ocean. That was Mali, Ghana, Songhai. Most of them had been in decline by the time Columbus got there. But when he got there, their lore, their maps, their ability to travel was still intact. He went back to Spain and started to research, started to interact with people, started to talk to people. And he found out that there, yes, were lands to the west that could be verified by maps that Maurian or Moors, as Columbus knew us, had. So that's the first part. When it comes to Puerto Rico, there was a native population there that was an admixture of Atlantean and Maurian. Now, when I say Atlantean, I'm not talking about the mythical land of Atlantis that everyone wants to fight over. I'm speaking about a group of people who were coastal, who are deep red, brown, pigmented people that were mostly found in the Americas, in the islands of the Caribbean, and in the Atlantic. Okay, they actually were there. So on the islands of Cape Verde, Canary Islands, and the Azores Islands. And even in Portugal, there were some remnants of them early on. And there are records of these people. The Canary Island natives are said to have had a deep red-brown complexion. They were descendants of an Atlantean type. So the Maurian type that you find in Puerto Rico is actually the result of Atlantean type mixing with these Malians and other Maurians that were establishing trade between West Africa and Mexico, what's now Mexico. Now, the Atlantic became impassable during the period of time from about when the destruction happened till about almost 1200, somewhere in there. And when it opened up again, that's when Abu Bakr II of the Malian Empire took a fleet of ships and thousands of people and went west. Ivan van Sertima, in his great book, They Came Before Columbus, catalogs this. But Abu Bakr II went from Mali, which was an Amexian empire, a Maurian type empire, went from West Africa back to the Americas to reestablish the trade routes. In his travels, I suspect he may have encountered some turbulence, some challenges. The sea was still very choppy. There were still probably sandbars and things like that. And as a result, some of his ships were probably lost. Some of those people were probably lost. And a lot of them probably ended up in the Caribbean, meeting up with Maurians who had been there as far back as 1500 BC. But that's a little bit about the Maurian type people in the Caribbean. The Spaniards did move people around, okay? They moved people from, but I want to make this clear. They did not take people all the way from Africa or West Africa or Mexam and bring them to the Caribbean. That did not necessarily happen in Puerto Rico. That's in some cases, but that was not the majority. The majority of the so-called blacks in Puerto Rico actually came from North America, from Florida, from the Gulf of Mexico, from Florida all the way over to Louisiana and parts of Texas, what's now Texas. Those people were taken, and that is cataloged by Hernan Cortez in the early 16th century or in the early 1540s. So the beautiful mixture of the Taino Indians or other types of Arawaks and Maurians from North America led to the beautiful diversity you see in Puerto Rico today. The same is true for other indigenous American groups like the Xi or the Olmec, who had a vast diversity of appearances, from the Mongolian type to the Hyperborean or Caucasian type, and the Maurian type, which is well represented in those giant Olmec heads you have. But we have to remember that the world and the human story is far more enchanting and complex than we want to believe. So I hope that answers some of your question. Please keep sharing questions. Thank you so much, Nefren Kayan, for your question. Thank you, everyone, for leaving your comments. I'll see you in the next video.